Okay, so I'm going to walk through, try to make this as short as video possible so you can pause it like crazy, but this is the a fast look on how to create a rough draft body paragraph. And that's kind of what we're going from note-taking to rough draft body paragraph. So I'm going to share this screen too. There we go. Okay, so I'm doing this I'm using Johnny Cash's life and all that stuff. Let's say I'm doing my initial research, and I found out that Johnny Cash's brother, Jack, was killed in a tragic way when he was young. So this article is pretty good. I Googled for it, Republic World, whatever. So this is all about the tragedy. It's a decent website, and I'm reading along, and there's a lot of good stuff to work with, of course. So his brother died tragically when Johnny was 12. What was the story? Goes through the whole story before he wanted to be a preacher and all this other stuff. Here's the tragic death of his brother. Let me get my invisible ink thing. Here we go. So all that stuff is super sad, and the sentence I'm taking is probably not the best one. One of them is this one. According to some report, Jack's death had a profound factor in young Johnny, who was still a happy-go-lucky kind of kid, always making jokes. However, after it became more quiet, preferred to spend time alone, he got more interested in stories and sketches than talking and playing, so totally turned inward, totally makes sense. So what I do is I copy and paste this whole chunk here, along with the web address, and I put it into Google Docs. And this is a little snippet of what it looks like when I copied and pasted it into Google Docs. I used bib citation to make sure that I have the right parenthetical citation. I'm also building my works cited list. The question is, what am I going to save, and what am I going to write around? Well, I'm not going to quote the whole thing. And when it comes to moving past the rough draft, I'm not going to quote the whole thing. I think the thing to keep is happy-go-lucky, always making jokes. I didn't know this part. I thought he was a quiet kid growing up and other things I had read. So I'm going to make a point that he was always sort of an entertainer. And that after his brother's death, things turned more towards guilt. So I'm allowing myself to rethink. I've written about Johnny Cash before. I'm allowing myself to rethink my interpretation of this according to this new source material. So I will save from here to there, and the rest of it I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to do it later. Okay, so then I have my parenthetical citation is already set, so I'm safe. I'm not plagiarizing. Over on the right-hand side of my works cited list, I'm using bib citation, or if you want, EasyBib, to create my works cited list. But that's not the most important thing. I still haven't done the most important thing. I have to write 2 sentences, commentary and a commentary kind of analysis kind of sentence to say, what does this mean and what else does it make me think? So I can't let myself leave without doing this. What did I find isn't nearly as important as what do I think about it once I've put it in there. So you got to find facts that are worthy of commentary, that show some insight, that struck you some way. Mere fact finding, unless you're writing a complete research article or something like that, is not what research is about. That's a report. And nobody writes books. Book reports stop in like 6th grade. This is about analysis and research and your reaction to research. So let's see what I wrote. Well, here are my 2 sentences. They're not great. First one, surrounding his tragic event would have a lifelong impact on anyone. Yeah, it would. It would chase anybody for the rest of their life. Their brother died when you were 12. Now, the second one, the word that jumps into my head is guilt, and that's a concept word. And concept words travel because everyone has felt guilty. Not everyone feels responsible for the death of their sibling, but everybody has felt guilt about something. So that's what analysis does, is we got to think up to a concept that's going to travel, that'll make the reader relate to it. So I wrote to myself, guilt, talk about that later. I'm like, this is powerful enough. This is the root of it all. And then my analysis, it seems Johnny was always an entertainer because of the laughing bit, and the shift from humor and comedy is understandable as he dealt with this tragedy. So here are my I got two concept words in there, and it makes me think, what else can I do from this? Well, I can go to his lyrics, how he dealt with murder. Most famous lyric is Folsom Prison Blues, where he sings, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. And he puts himself in the role of a death row prisoner because guilt was such a huge theme in his life. So what you can do, right? Don't fall in love with obviously I would take a bunch of notes on that article. Excuse me, plague, because it's really good. But I'm gonna go to brainyquote.com and I'm gonna look for quotes about guilt. And I'm going to say, what is the world's wisdom? What does anybody have to say about guilt? And let's see what comes up. Zig Ziglar, about integrity, fear, have no guilt. Coco Chanel, guilt is perhaps the most painful companion of death. I'm not going to quote her. She's a pretty rotten person. Guilt and anxiety are produced by thoughts of the future. And then nothing is more wretched than the mind of a man conscious of guilt, said Plautus. I don't know what Plautus is, but that's a great quote. It's perfect. And that's why we think up. You have to find research that's worthy of commentary, and then force yourself to try to think to connections, into art, into some other place, or where have we seen this before, or who benefits, or whatever. And ask those questions that we've listed. And here is Plautus, who turns out to be a 2nd century BC or BCE Roman playwright, who actually wrote comedies, which is weird. So I'm going to take this whole quote because it's perfect. Nothing is more wretched than the mind of a man conscious of guilt. Man, it's good. And I do what's called a signal phrase. A signal phrase is when you introduce the person. There's no works cited list, copy that from. I am going to put it to a Brainy Quote. So I put the web address of Brainy Quote into Bib Citation, and that created a citation. But there's nothing really to say here. This isn't published from, I don't know where he was quoted saying this, but whatever. So Roman playwright Plautus, I should put 2nd century, whatever, described this dynamic well when he said, nothing is more wretched. Now this to me is the worst. I really don't like doing that where you quote a whole sentence. But when the whole sentence is perfect as is, got to do it. So I got to repeat the process now. That's good enough for my parenthetical citation or whatever my reference. But I have to write my 2 commentary and analysis sentences. So guilt seems to follow Johnny throughout his life. I should probably put Cash instead of Johnny. It's more formal. And then this burden was heavy. However, it did fuel his art and shed light on those hurting from past mistakes. Now, this isn't worded right. That's not capitalized. I probably could rewrite this, but I'm not stopping. Right? Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. We don't worry about little mistakes as we go. We will clean it up later. But I have right now the guts of a good body paragraph. So here are my sentences, and I line them up. I've committed to making this into a paragraph. Okay, so I still have to blend this quote. I'm going to do that. I have my commentary here and my commentary here. I feel good about those sentences. Now here's the next step that's important. Whatever concept those 2 things have in common, whatever the concept is, has to be my topic sentence. And then my conclusion sentence is I reread those sentences and those sentences, and I say, what am I really saying here? And that's my conclusion. Okay? And then I'm not, please, for God's sake, don't end or begin your paragraphs with source material. It's just impossible to pass that. It's completely unacceptable. You have to have something to say. You have to, like, when I read this, I came to this conclusion, and that has to be the end of your paragraph. Otherwise, what was the point? So these two things, whatever the concept is, becomes my topic sentence. And these 4 sentences, or 5, or whatever, if it takes a couple to write, who cares, become your conclusion sentence. So on this example, I kind of worked backwards a little bit. I did the conclusion first because I was feeling it. And I reminded myself that my topic sentence has to be an idea, concept-driven, kind of short sentence. If it's a little bit longer, who cares? But there has to be an idea involved. So I reread this, and I reread this, and I came up with this. Now, your brain wants to reach conclusions. Your brain does. But what did all this mean? You can't walk out of a movie confused. I mean, and without asking a question, even if it's somebody you don't know. How did, Inception, what was the whole thing with the spinning thing? Did it wobble? And, whatever, if you've seen that movie, it gives you a lot of questions like Memento or Fight Club or whatever. So when your brain wants to make connections, give yourself room to write something amazing. Again, the spelling doesn't have to be perfect. Who cares about spelling right now? But I wrote a 2-sentence conclusion. And bird ends, that should be there. Whatever, I misspelled the word. Who cares? But it's still powerful. And I feel good about what I wrote. Now I got to write a topic sentence. So this is the topic sentence I wrote. Johnny Cash molded an identity. Ooh, that's a topic word. That's a concept word too. From a tragedy from his childhood. Now that's not good wording because I used from twice. I got to think of a different preposition. But again, not worried about perfect wording right now. Combining guilt and sorrow in a powerful way. It's good stuff. I mean, it took me 1 or 2 tries, but I'm sort of thinking up, but also connecting it to the details. It'll be the first sentence in my paragraph. Now, once you take away all the formatting of topic sentence and source material and commentary and then commentary analysis, take all that stuff away, turn everything into Times New Roman, because that's what the format has to be. Font size, no, it's 12. Hey, let's look it up. I'm having brain fog right now. If you ever want to know anything about MLA or APA format, I'm going to use MLA here. Google the words MLA OWL, which stands for the Online Writing Lab at Purdue University. They sort of took it on to be the one place where everybody sort of runs to with all their MLA problems. And I'm going to show you what that website looks like as soon as it loads. And the Purdue Online Writing Lab looks like this. There's a YouTube channel. They have everything you ever need. They're great. So this is if you're desperate and EasyBib and Bib Citation are not giving you what you need on APA or MLA, which are required in academic writing. Purdue University, just Purdue, I'm sorry, MLA OWL, or Purdue OWL. I think a little owl right there. That looks like an owl, I guess. All right, so it's Times New Roman, font size 12. This is still a rough draft, so I still have stuff in bold. I have not, where's my pen? Here we go. I still have to blend this quote, but I'm not super worried about that right now. I have Quillbot and Grammarly telling me I have some grammatical mistakes. That's okay. I will fix that later. But I have this sort of packaged and ready to go. Everything's in the cake except for the icing. There's probably some wording that could be better. But other than that, this is a good place to move on. So that is the goal, is one body paragraph. The things we want involved in this are 1/3 source, at least 1/3 is source, and 2/3 your voice or interpretation, or why are my threes all mess up? commentary, analysis, your thoughts. It needs to be more about you reacting to this, and especially when there's two of them and you make a connection. Because if Johnny was sitting right here and he read this thing by Plautus, I bet you he'd like, man, why is that guy stealing my lyrics? Or how could I, it's perfect. So those are the things we want. Idea-driven things that click together. Where have we seen this before? Contrast or whatever. And the glue that makes it all come together is what you have to say about it. So again, don't make perfect the enemy of the good. In other words, make good enough. A good enough cookie doesn't have to be perfect. People are going to eat it. I'm hungry. Okay, and then what's also we're going to call good about it is the last couple sentences are completely me. That is my conclusion. It's stuff I said up here, concluded down here. Let's make this as sloppy as possible. And the topic sentence is all idea-driven up here and short, and it's proven down here. Can everybody follow this? Okay, so that's how we want it to look. Rough draft body paragraph. You got it.